personal individual liberty.
What's going on?
The concept of personal individual liberty.
Save a constitutional right. When they're gonna give up the fight. Start a revolution and break down illegal institutions. We don't want no war no more. Bring our boys home to our shores. And we don't want big government or the Bilderberg group that pays for it. The federal IT means a police state, and Mr. Jefferson's rolling in his grave. And our names spin the numbers like 666, according to the gospel on the planet of shit.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Deadline Live. There you go. You learn something every day. I didn't know there was a disco version to that song. Amy Allen, the great Amy Allen, Ron Paul anthem. I like the stompin' version. I know they use that on the Liberty Cafe, and good for them. But there's a disco version. I can see everybody listening to the show out doing a little disco dance. Shoeless. The shoeless masses, out of shoes because they threw them all at their stinking, rotten politicians. I'm not going to let it go. That's the theme for the show today. Before I get into this Alexander Haig story, a little background, and I guess talk a little history with you all, I want to announce the website of the month. I don't have my sound effects samplers up, so I cannot throw a drum roll out here. I can't throw out mass applause, but this is my website of the month. We're going to do this every month, and it's a brand new website out there. For those of you who love Obama, it's dedicated to Obama. So I know many people in this audience or people later coming back to download the programs are going to want to, find out more about the person you love. So I want you to tell all the people that love Obama to go show some love for Obama at this new website, my website of the month, Obamanati.info. Great site done by one of our forum members, Jibwake, who's a great researcher, great writer, and also an Obama lover. He loves Obama. This is a way to show love. Now, it's going to be tough love. I want to warn you. For those of you going there to Obamanati.info, it is some tough love, but it is love nonetheless. We're not haters. We're just trying to, like any parent, and we the people, I guess, can be seen as the parents of the little children who are so immature they think there are parents, mom and dad government. But, you have to correct your children once in a while, and let's face it, the politicians are all children, the babies. So you have to, every once in a while, give your children a spanking. Now, I know some of you think that that's child abuse. I like to start my children off right, and we never have to give them a spanking because they never misbehave. Some of you who know my children would attest to that. But as we know, that's not always the case, especially when you're coming from mixed racial marriages and you're a child of divorce and all this. We know Obama's past. So to show Obama love, and I think for all the people out there that love Obama but know that he needs a good correcting, needs to be sent to his room, sit in the corner, given a timeout, maybe a good spanking or good thrashing, you're going to love Obamanati.info. All your Obama information. Not missing much over there. Good job on that. www.obamanati.info. Our website of the month. Fill in, drum roll, sound effects right here. Allegedly. There you go. It's a Monday, and we're already starting with the allegedlys. Alexander Haig on Obama, reason to be optimistic. This is a story appearing in Newsmax. I'm not exactly sure of the origin. I think it could be Newsmax. Retired four-star general, former Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, tells Newsmax that Americans have reason to be optimistic about the incoming Barack Obama administration despite the horrendous problems he has inherited. I mean, this shows you the level of synchronization with these bad children, as we just called them. I mean, here's a guy that comes out of the Reagan administration, rather the Bush administration. We'll get there in a second. Again, I love this picture. You got to see this. Look at the story. I'm gonna put this picture up on my forum or something. I got to use this picture. The disapproving look of Heinz Kissinger at Alexander Haig, at whatever they were talking about here. But this shows the level of complicity, the level of total synchronization, the level of the combinations. I mean, here's a guy that's supposed to be a loyal Republican backing Obama. He's one of the Obama traitors. In a wide-ranging exclusive Newsmax interview, Haig also said leaving Saddam Hussein in power after the first Gulf War was insanity. Declared that President Richard Nixon did more to win the Cold War than did Ronald Reagan, and called Nixon's normalization of relations with China the most important foreign policy event in this last century. He quipped that after Reagan was shot, his health deteriorated and his wife's hairdresser had more to do with running the country than the president, which certainly confirms what we have been saying all along, that George Herbert Walker Bush, known as Poppy, to the order of death, and, well, we know why, had a 12-year run as President of the United States, followed by his henchman, Bubba Clinton, followed by his son, George W., followed by their new henchman and glorious leader, Barack Obama. Now, there is certainly a lot of tension here. Understanding, again, where Alexander Haig came from, I think, is extremely important. Let's backtrack. Let's flash back just a little bit. Reagan was a former spokesperson for General Electric Company, stocked his administration with current and former members of the globalist groups, the very people he had criticized while campaigning. Now, I've heard this a lot, and it's true. Didn't like the trilateralists, didn't like the CFR people, allegedly. Though they did announce his run for governor from Bohemian Grove, so I think, well, Nixon was sitting next to him. So I think he had a pretty good clue as to who these people were, if nothing else, and certainly was one of them on many, many levels. During the 1980 presidential campaign, Reagan verbally attacked the 19 trilaterals in the Carter administration and vowed to investigate the group if elected. Now, we've heard that before. This is something you vow to do. And remember, you're in the campaign trail. These people had failed miserably. Many people begun to open up and understand this whole trilateralist David Rockefeller conspiracy in that day and age. He had attempted to win those people over, I think, is part of it. Anyway, while competing against George Herbert Walker Bush for the nomination, Reagan lambasted Bush's membership in both the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. He pledged not to give Bush a position in the Reagan government. Of course, most of you understand the story as it happened during the Republican National Convention. A strange series of events took place. There began talk that Gerald Ford would be the nomination. There would be a co-presidency, and Ford will be able to choose half of the Reagan cabinet. So again, here we are in the pickle, giving Reagan some benefit of the doubt. It's hard to do that, knowing exactly where he comes from, but let's give him some benefit of the doubt here. You either get Gerald Ford or Poppy Bush. You either have half a presidency, or, at least in your own mind, because they don't tell the president-elect anything, you might get 90% of the presidency. So this is when he came out and said, look, I'm going to supersede all of this talk before this gets out of control, and I'm going to name Poppy as my VP. That is a moment in his life I'm sure he regretted as long as he could think. For one brief moment, the power of those who control the corporate mass media was revealed. Reagan never again uttered a word against the globalist groups such as the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. Following his election, Reagan's 59-member transition team was composed of 28 Council on Foreign Relations members, 10 members of the elite Bilderberg Group, and at least 10 members of the Trilateral Commission. He even appointed prominent CFR members to 3 of the nation's most sensitive offices: Secretary of State Alexander Haig, Secretary of Defense Cap Weinberger, Secretary of the Treasury Donald Regan. Additionally, he named Bush's campaign manager James A. Baker III, who then served as chairman of the Reagan-Bush Campaign Committee, as his chief of staff. Baker, of course, as many of you know, a fourth-generation member of a family long connected to Rockefeller oil interests. Cough button. After Reagan won in November, it was alleged that Bush, along with CIA Director William Casey, had privately cut a deal with the Iranian leaders to hold American hostages a little longer until after the November election. Of course, most of you know that as the October surprise. They put Lee Hamilton on to investigate this. The Reagan-Bush administration. House Task Force led by Congressman Lee Hamilton, of course, the same man Bush's son would name to the co-chair of the 9/11 Commission in late 2002. We'll get to the Alexander Haig stuff in the second hour of the broadcast today. And what is option arm loans? Why could that mean the next wave of foreclosures across the country could be catastrophic to the economy? We'll get there and other places in the second hour. I hope you'll stay tuned. I'm Jack Blood, your radio gun. You're listening to FU Radio.
2 parts purple Kool-Aid and a jigger of formaldehyde from the jar with Hitler's brain in it we got smashed in the back.